The 2025 Arnold Strongman Classic is done and dusted, with Mitchell Hooper taking his third trophy in a row, finishing with a total of 51.5 points. Completing the podium was Lucas Hatton with 49 points. Behind him in third place was Hathor Bjornsson on 42.5 points, in one of the most stacked lineups that we've seen in years. In fourth place we had Austin Andrade on 38.5 points. Trey finished in fifth, 1 point behind on 37.5. Evan in sixth on 33. Tom Stoltman came in seventh on 31.5. Bobby Thompson came in eighth, 17.5. He pulled out of the last event. Nick Guardione, ninth with 17, and then Maxime, who withdrew after a bicep tear on the frame carry, finished in last place on 6 points. I would say that maybe the most impressive part of the weekend was that Mitch actually had to do a bit of work on the last event. He didn't have it completely wrapped up after the first 5 events like he has done in previous competitions that we've seen, and that is a testament to Lucas Hatton and just how well he did, with 2 first place finishes on the overhead gauntlet and the big jerk, pushing Mitch all the way until the end. The only real weakness that Lucas had was the deadlift, where he finished 7th, and it's a bit silly to call it a weakness when he pulled 926 pounds, which was 65 pounds more than Tom Stoltman, who finished in 8th place on the event, and 35 pounds behind 6th place, which was Austin Andrade, who pulled 961 pounds. Austin is somebody that had a really solid performance throughout the entire weekend as well, only finishing 4 points off the podium spot behind Hathor Bjornsson, beating the likes of Trey Mitchell, Evan Singleton, Bobby Thompson, and the current world strongest man, Tom Stoltman, in his first ever Arnold's as well. Just shows how good of an athlete and a competitor he is. And of course, the guy beating him to that podium spot was Thor Bjornsson, who did a lot better than I actually expected him to do in the overall competition. He matched a lot of the guys on the overhead jerk with a 232 kilo lift. I expected him to get somewhere around the 220 to 225 mark after seeing his training, but he actually made the 232 look a lot better than a lot of the other athletes that did the same weight did. His timber carry into the sled drag was absolutely insane, and it meant that we got to hear Loz tell everybody about the time that he trained drag with Thor many years ago, and that he would never beat him even if he trained it his entire life. Now, the reason that I didn't expect Thor to do as well as he did was mainly down to the deadlift. I just thought he would be focusing much more on pulling the 501 and maybe not as much on the competition. But with how well he did on all the other events, it just shows that he came in truly prepared, and that is a sign of a champion and somebody that is really just very, very good at the sport of strongman. I was impressed with a lot of the other guys as well. A 5th place for Trey after he zeroed completely on the frame carry up the ramp just shows how well he did in all the other events, but that zero really just put an end to his podium hopes. Evan got a 6th place, and to be honest, it was really the stone to shoulder that stopped him going any higher up the table. I think he tied with Nick Guardione, getting 2 reps on the lighter stone, whereas I think everybody else managed reps on the heavier stone. So that just sort of killed his attempt of getting any higher up the leaderboard. Tom Stoltman did battle back a slight bit on day 2. I think he went a little bit conservative with the overhead jerk, considering he'd been posting 230 doubles in training. To only go for 232 on your last lift just seemed a little bit light, and it looked like a very easy lift. I think he definitely had more in him, and it didn't do anything for him in the overall standings because he tied with like 3, maybe 4 other people, so they all just split the points and pretty much stayed the exact same. His sled drag was okay, but for a guy of his size, he's very similar in proportions to someone like Hathor, maybe a little bit lighter, but I expected him to be the one that challenges for the top spot in this event. He didn't do bad, but he didn't do as well as I expected him to, and then he only managed 2 reps on the stone at the end, which is a very good performance, especially when you've not really got anything to battle for. So props to him for coming out and still putting in a good performance on the last event. So overall, the competition was exciting to watch. I did say yesterday in my other video, check it out if you haven't already seen it, that Mitch had basically already won it. And when he hit that 242 on the overhead jerk, all he really needed was a decent run on the timber trial to pretty much secure that top spot. And with an event like that, which Mitch is always going to do well in, it was pretty much already secured for him. But he still had to go out, still had to execute, which he did, which he always does. And as we know, he won the overall competition. One thing I will say though is that Mitch isn't unbeatable, and that was shown this weekend. He didn't win a single event, he was just consistently in that top 3, and that's what Mitch does really well. And he seems to have the ability to just pull it out of the bag when it really matters. When the pressure is on is when Mitch performs at his best, and again, he did that this weekend. He needed to hit that overhead jerk, and he did. He needed a very good run on the timber trial, and he got it. And he needed to shoulder that big stone at least once, and he did it twice. So, yeah, when the pressure is on, Mitch is the best in the world. I think people have got so used to Mitch winning that it almost just feels as if it's a battle for second place. And I think that the athletes feel that a lot as well, which I don't think is a good thing. You know, in years gone by, it didn't feel like that from what I've seen anyway. You've got the likes of Derek Poundstone coming in and really challenging Mariusz Pudzianowski, which he didn't manage to win World's Strongest Man in 2008, but he still had that belief and still went all out for it. You had Brian with Zadrunas, and then obviously Thor behind him, but Thor always had that belief that he could beat those two and kept battling for it. And now it just feels as though people expect Mitch to win. He has this certain aura around him when it comes to competitions, and I think the problem is, for somebody to beat him, there need to be the perfect events for that person. But if you chuck out any set of events for Mitch to compete in, the chances are he's going to come top 3 in every single one of those events, no matter what they are. He knows that he doesn't need to be the best in the world. He just needs to be better than the people who are challenging for the title. So he doesn't necessarily need to be as good as Tom Stoltman on Atlas Stones, but as long as he's better than Lucas Hatton, for example, he knows he's going to win the overall show because he knows he can beat Tom on other events. And vice versa, of course. The same with Lucas Hatton. He wasn't going to beat him on the overhead gauntlet, but he'd already taken a big chunk of points away from him on the deadlift. So Mitch's consistency to get in that top 3 is what keeps winning him all of these titles. And as long as that continues, I think it's going to be difficult for anybody to beat him in upcoming competitions. So I guess now the real question is, who will win the world's strongest man? That is the next big international competition, discounting Europe's strongest man, because the likes of Mitch, Andrade, Lucas Hatton, they're not competing in that. Neither is Thor. And Worlds is only like 10 weeks away now. We don't know the events. We do have, I'm pretty sure, like the full list of athletes. I think there's a few still to be confirmed and to be invited, but it's really not that far away. I would assume that we're going to hear more about the events in the next, say, 4 to 6 weeks. They seem to be pretty on top of it this year with announcing the athletes. I think they announced them all the way back in, not all of them, but the ones that have been invited all the way back in December, and now they've confirmed a lot of the athletes as well. And it's only just turned March, so they seem to be really on the ball with getting the information out this year. So hopefully, like I say, 4 to 6 weeks time, should start hearing stuff about the events. And even if we don't, we should get some sort of idea what they're going to be from people's training that we see online. We know the likes of Tom Stoltman is always very good when it comes to the World's Strongest Man competition. We have the likes of Alexei coming back. He's had a bit of time off with injury, but he is somebody that, when he's on form, is very difficult to beat. And then we have, again, the likes of Lucas Hatton, Austin Andrade. I don't know if Andre Foytu has been invited, but he was very impressive last year. And, you know, Trey Mitchell, Evan Singleton, all of these guys who are very good and very capable of beating Mitchell Hooper. I don't think they will, but they're capable of it. Anyway, guys, that's all for me today. Get in the comments below and let me know what you thought of the Arnolds this year. Let me know what you think of the upcoming competitions that we have. Other than that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the video as always, and I'll see you next time.